Single dad nurse saves a dying woman, unaware she's a billionaire who will change his life. Welcome to TrueSoul Narratives, where every story carries a heartbeat. Love, betrayal, kindness, forgiveness, and the courage to start again. Before we start, comment below and let us know where you are watching from. Enjoy the story, the alarm screamed. Flatline. Adrian Foster's hands pressed down on the woman's chest, counting compressions in his head. 1, 2, 3. Her heart had stopped, completely stopped. The doctor was already calling time of death, but Adrian kept going. His arms burned, his back ached, but he wouldn't quit. 3 months later, this woman would hand him a check that would make him cry. She'd change his daughter's life. She'd change everything. But first, he had to save her. One more compression, one more breath. Come on. Her eyes fluttered, then opened. Let's go back to the beginning. To understand how a single father nurse making $11 an hour ended up connected to a woman worth billions, you need to know who Adrian Foster really was. 29 years old, and he'd been working at City General Hospital for 7 years. Started as an orderly, worked his way up to ER nurse through night school and sheer determination. He was good at his job, really good. The kind of nurse doctors requested by name. The kind patients remembered years later. The kind who never lost someone on his watch. Not if he could help it, but Adrian's reputation at the hospital was nothing compared to his reputation at home. Single father to Maya, his 6-year-old daughter with the biggest smile and the weakest lungs. Maya had been born healthy, perfect. But when she turned 2, her mother decided she couldn't handle it anymore. Couldn't handle the responsibility, the sacrifice, the reality of being a parent. She left one morning while Adrian was at work. No note, no explanation, just gone. He came home to find Maya crying in her crib and his wife's closet empty. That was 4 years ago. He'd been doing it alone ever since. The alone part wasn't the hardest thing. Adrian could handle being a single parent. What crushed him was the money, or the lack of it. Maya developed asthma at age 4, severe asthma, the kind that meant emergency room visits, expensive inhalers, specialist appointments, medications that cost more than his rent. Insurance covered some of it. Not enough. Never enough. Adrian worked double shifts whenever he could, picked up extra hours, skipped meals to make sure Maya had everything she needed. He lived paycheck to paycheck, and some months the paycheck didn't stretch far enough. Tonight was one of those nights where everything hit at once. 11 p.m. and Adrian was already 14 hours into his shift. 2 nurses had called in sick, leaving the ER dangerously understaffed. His supervisor had begged him to stay. Just until midnight, just until the night shift arrives, Adrian had said yes because he always said yes, because the hospital needed him, because patients needed him, because saying no wasn't in his nature. Maya was with Mrs. Chen, their neighbor, who watched her more nights than Adrian wanted to admit. He owed that woman so many favors he'd lost count. His phone rang at 11:15. Mrs. Chen's name on the screen. His stomach dropped. She never called unless something was wrong. Adrian, I'm sorry to bother you, but Maya's having trouble breathing. She used her inhaler, but it's not helping. Panic flooded his chest. How bad? She's scared, breathing fast. I think you should come home. Adrian closed his eyes. He was the only nurse on the floor. 3 patients in beds, 2 more in the waiting room, but this was his daughter. I'm on my way. He found his supervisor. Explained. The woman's face softened with understanding. Go. We'll figure it out. He was grabbing his coat when the ambulance bay doors burst open. Paramedics rushed in, pushing a gurney. Woman, 50s, found unconscious in the presidential suite at the Grandview Hotel. Cardiac event. She coded in the ambulance. We got her back, but she's unstable. Adrian froze. His coat half on, his keys in his hand. The woman on the gurney was pale, oxygen mask over her face, chest barely rising. She was dying. He could see it, feel it. The other nurses were with patients. The doctor was in surgery. There was no one else. Adrian looked at the paramedic, then at his phone, then at the woman who had maybe minutes left. He made the choice, get her to Bay 3. He tossed his coat aside and ran. His hands were already moving, checking vitals, hooking up monitors. He called Mrs. Chen back. His voice was steady even though his heart was racing. Give Maya her inhaler, the emergency one in the top drawer. 2 puffs. I'll be there as soon as I can. Mrs. Chen's voice was worried but understanding. She'll be okay, Adrian. You do what you need to do. He hung up, turned to the woman on the table. She was crashing, alarm screaming, heart rate plummeting. Let's go. Get the crash cart. The woman wore a silk blouse. Designer. Her jewelry was real, the kind that cost more than Adrian made in a year. But none of that mattered now. None of that would save her. He cut away her shirt, placed the defibrillator paddles. Clear. Her body jerked. Nothing. Again. Clear. Still nothing. The monitor showed a flat line. The doctor who'd just run in from another emergency checked the time. Nurse Foster, she's gone. Adrian shook his head. Not yet. His hands found her chest. Started compressions. 1, 2, 3. The doctor sighed. Adrian, she's been down too long. We need to call it. No, his voice was firm, determined. I'm not calling it. He kept going, arms burning, every compression sending shocks of pain through his exhausted muscles. He'd been awake for 18 hours, working for 14. His body was screaming at him to stop, but his mind flashed to Maya, to his little girl struggling to breathe at home, to every parent who'd ever waited for news about someone they loved. This woman was someone's daughter, maybe someone's mother. Someone somewhere needed her to live, and Adrian Foster had never lost a patient on his watch. He wasn't starting now. Have you ever had to choose between 2 impossible options? Tell us in the comments what you would have done. 2 minutes of CPR. 3. 4. The doctor was saying something about brain damage, about quality of life, about letting go. Adrian wasn't listening. His world had narrowed to the rhythm of compressions and the silent prayer he repeated with every push. Come on, stay with me. Fight. The other nurses stood back, unsure whether to intervene or let him try. They'd seen this before, seen Adrian refuse to give up long after everyone else had accepted defeat. Sometimes he won, sometimes he didn't, but he always tried. 5 minutes. His arms were shaking now, sweat dripped down his face. The monitor still showed nothing. Flatline, the sound that haunted every medical professional's nightmares. Adrian, the doctor said gently, touching his shoulder. It's time. He jerked away. One more, give me one more chance. He repositioned the paddles, charged them to maximum. This was it, the last attempt. If this didn't work, he'd have to stop. He'd have to accept that he couldn't save everyone. Clear. The shock sent her body arcing off the table. For a moment, nothing. The room held its breath. Then, a beep. Faint. Barely there, but a beep. The monitor showed a heartbeat. Weak. Irregular. But there. Her chest rose on its own. Fell. Rose again. She was breathing. Adrian stumbled backward, his legs nearly giving out. The doctor stared at the monitor in disbelief. I'll be damned! The other nurses rushed in, stabilizing her, adjusting medications, doing everything needed to keep that fragile heartbeat going. Adrian leaned against the wall, his entire body shaking. He'd done it, saved her, for now. The woman's face was still pale, eyes closed, but she was alive. That was enough. The doctor clapped him on the shoulder. Good work, Foster. Really good work. Adrian nodded, too exhausted to speak. He checked the clock. 11:45. Maya, he had to get home. But first he made sure the woman was stable, transferred to ICU, every detail documented. As he finally grabbed his coat and headed for the exit, he glanced back at the unconscious woman one last time. He didn't know her name, didn't know anything about her. Just another life saved. Just another shift at City General. He pushed through the doors into the cold night air and ran to his car. His daughter needed him. And Adrian Foster always showed up for the people who mattered. Always. If stories like this remind you what really matters in life, subscribe to TrueSoul Narratives for more powerful tales of courage, sacrifice, and unexpected connections. Adrian made it home by midnight, found Maya breathing easier, the emergency inhaler having done its job. Mrs. Chen had stayed until he arrived, refusing payment as always. He carried his sleeping daughter to bed, kissed her forehead, and collapsed on the couch. He was asleep in seconds. He didn't dream about the woman he'd saved. Didn't think about her at all. Just another shift. Just another life. The next morning, he was back at the hospital for his regular shift. Exhausted but present. That's when he learned the woman had no identity. No one knew who she was. The hospital staff had tried everything. Checked her clothes, designer labels, expensive. The kind of quality that spoke of serious money. Her jewelry was real too. Diamond earrings, a watch that probably cost more than Adrian's car. But no purse, no wallet, no phone, no identification of any kind. The hotel staff said she'd checked in under a fake name, paid cash, refused housekeeping. It was like she'd wanted to disappear. The police came that afternoon, took photos, ran her fingerprints through every database they had. Nothing. No criminal record. No missing persons report matching her description. She was a ghost. A Jane Doe in expensive clothes. The woman remained unconscious. Day 1 passed, then day 2. The doctor said it was her body's way of healing, that the trauma of the cardiac event had been severe. Her brain needed time to recover. They moved her to a private room, kept her on monitors, waited. Adrian found himself checking on her between his regular patients. It started as professional concern, making sure the woman he'd fought so hard to save was actually recovering. But it became something else, something he couldn't quite explain. He'd pull a chair up beside her bed during his breaks, just sit there. Sometimes he'd talk. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said on day 3, his voice quiet in the sterile room. "But they say talking helps, so here I am." He told her about his shift, about the teenager who'd come in with a broken arm from skateboarding, about the elderly man with pneumonia who kept hitting on the nurses. Stupid stuff, easy stuff. Then, without meaning to, he told her real things. About Maya, about the asthma, about working doubles just to afford the medications, about being tired all the time but not being able to stop because stopping meant falling behind, and falling behind meant losing everything. "You don't know me," Adrian said on day 4, "and I don't know you, but I saved your life. So I guess that means I'm invested now." He laughed, but it was sad. "I do that sometimes. Get attached to patients I probably shouldn't. My supervisor says I care too much, that I'll burn out if I don't learn to keep distance." He looked at her peaceful face, the monitors beeping steadily. "But I don't know how to not care. If I stop caring, what's the point of any of this?" He stood to leave, then paused. "Whoever you are, I hope you wake up soon. Someone out there is probably worried about you." Day 5. Adrian brought his daughter to the hospital, against protocol, but Maya had a half day at school and Mrs. Chen was out of town. He couldn't afford a sitter. So Maya sat in the break room with her coloring books while Adrian worked. During lunch, he brought her to see the Jane Doe. "Don't touch anything," he warned gently. Maya nodded, her big eyes taking in all the machines. She walked close to the bed. "Is she sleeping, Daddy?" "Something like that." "Will she wake up?" Adrian's throat tightened. "I hope so, sweetheart." Maya studied the woman's face for a long moment. "She looks nice, like she has good dreams." That night, Adrian sat beside the bed again after his shift ended. The hospital was quiet. Most visitors had gone home. He was supposed to clock out, pick up Maya from the nurse's station where she was drawing pictures with the night staff, but he stayed a few more minutes. "I brought my daughter today," he told the unconscious woman. "She said you look nice, that you seem like you have good dreams." He smiled. "Maya's like that, sees the good in everything, even when things are hard." He paused. "I don't know what you're dreaming about in there, but I hope you're fighting. I hope you want to wake up, because I didn't save you just so you could stay asleep forever." Day 6, the police returned with news. They'd run her photo through facial recognition, through international databases, through missing persons reports from every state. Nothing. It was like she didn't exist, or like she'd gone to great lengths to make sure no one could find her. The lead detective stood in the hallway with Adrian, shaking his head. "I've never seen anything like this. A woman of obvious means clearly from money based on her possessions, and absolutely zero digital footprint. It's almost impossible in this day and age. Adrian frowned. So what happens now? The detective sighed. We keep trying. But if no one comes looking for her, if she doesn't wake up and tell us who she is, she becomes a ward of the state. Adrian hated that idea. This woman becoming just another file, another statistic. He increased his visits, started reading to her during breaks, news articles, stories from the paper, anything to fill the silence. On day 7, he brought his worn copy of a novel he'd been reading. Figured she might like it better than hospital gossip. He sat in the chair, open to where he'd left off, and read aloud, his voice steady and soothing. Halfway through a chapter, he glanced up and froze. Her eyes were open. She was staring at him, confused and disoriented, but awake. Adrian dropped the book, hit the call button. Stay calm. You're in a hospital. You're safe. The woman's mouth moved. No sound came out at first, then barely a whisper. Where am I? City General Hospital. You had a heart attack 7 days ago. We've been waiting for you to wake up. She blinked slowly, processing. Her hand lifted weakly toward the oxygen tube in her nose. Adrian gently caught her wrist. Don't pull that. You need it. The medical team rushed in. Questions, assessments, checking vitals and responses. Adrian stepped back, letting them work. But his eyes never left her face. She looked scared, lost, like she'd woken up in a world she didn't recognize. The doctor asked the important question. Can you tell us your name? The woman stared at him, her mouth opened, closed. Confusion flooded her features. Then something worse. Panic. I don't know, her voice cracked. I don't remember. The doctor exchanged glances with the nurses. It's okay, that can happen after what you've been through. Let's start simple. Do you know where you're from? She shook her head, tears forming. Do you remember anything from before you came here? Another headshake. The tears spilled over. I don't remember anything. I don't know who I am. Adrian felt his chest tighten. Amnesia. The oxygen deprivation during the cardiac event must have caused temporary memory loss. The doctor's voice was calm, reassuring. Your memories will likely come back. Give it time, don't force it. But the woman, this Jane Doe, who'd been unconscious for a week, looked terrified. She reached out blindly and her hand found Adrian's. He squeezed it instinctively. You're okay. I promise you're okay. She looked at him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had become liquid and uncertain. Who are you? My name's Adrian. I'm a nurse here. I was here when you came in. Her grip tightened. Did you save me? He hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I did. She held his gaze for a long moment, tears still streaming down her face. Thank you. She whispered it like a prayer, like those 2 words carried the weight of everything she couldn't remember, but somehow knew mattered. Adrian stayed while the doctors ran more tests. Stayed while they asked gentle questions trying to trigger memories. Nothing worked. She couldn't remember her name, where she lived, if she had family, what she did for work. It was all blank, a void where a life should be. The only thing she seemed certain about was that Adrian's voice was familiar, that the sound of him reading had pulled her back from wherever she'd been. That felt like safety. As the night shift arrived and Adrian finally had to leave, the woman, this mystery patient with no name and no past, called out to him from her bed. Will you come back? He stopped, turned. Of course, I'll check on you tomorrow. She smiled, small, fragile, but real. Good, because I don't know anything right now, but I know I feel safe when you're here. Adrian nodded, not trusting his voice. He left the room, headed to the nurse's station. Picked up Maya, who'd fallen asleep in the break room. As he carried his daughter to the car, he thought about the woman upstairs, about the fear in her eyes, the way she'd held his hand like it was a lifeline. He told himself it was just professional concern, that he cared about all his patients. But deep down, he knew this was different. Something about her pulled at him, made him want to protect her, to help her find her way back. He didn't know why, didn't understand it, but he felt it, bone deep. This woman was going to change his life. He just didn't know how yet. Over the next 2 weeks, Adrian became her entire world. Not intentionally, not because anyone assigned him, but because she had no one else. The police kept searching, put out bulletins, checked national databases. Nothing. The woman with no name had no past anyone could find. So Adrian stepped in, filled the void. He'd check on her before his shift, during breaks, after he clocked out, brought her magazines, books, anything to keep her mind occupied while they waited for her memories to return. And slowly, without meaning to, they built something. A connection neither of them expected. She started calling herself Elle, just a placeholder until the real name came back. But it stuck. Adrian would knock on her door. Elle would look up from whatever book she was reading and smile. That smile did something to him. Made the exhaustion of double shifts feel lighter. Made the weight he carried daily seem less crushing. On day 10, he broke protocol again. Brought Maya to visit during his lunch break. Elle's entire face transformed when the 6-year-old walked in. She sat up straighter. Her eyes lit up. And when Maya climbed onto the chair beside her bed, Elle started telling her a story. A fairy tale about a princess and a dragon, words flowing like she'd told it 1,000 times before. "Where did you learn that story?" Adrian asked when Maya was distracted with her coloring. Ella looked surprised. "I don't know, it just came out." She touched her temple, frustrated. "It's like that with everything. I know things, but I don't know how I know them." That afternoon, Adrian wheeled her to the hospital's small recreation room. There was an old piano in the corner, donated years ago, rarely used. Elle walked over to it like she was drawn by a magnet, sat down, her fingers found the keys, and she played, beautifully, a complex piece that required years of training. When she finished, tears were streaming down her face. "I don't remember learning this, but my hands remember." She spoke French too. Found out by accident when a French-speaking patient was admitted. Elle heard him in the hallway, struggling to communicate with the staff. She stepped out of her room and spoke to him in perfect, fluent French, translated for the nurses. Later, Adrian asked her about it. "I didn't know I could do that until I heard him. It just happened." She laughed, but it was broken. "It's terrifying, Adrian. Knowing I'm someone, knowing I have skills and knowledge and a whole life somewhere, but not being able to access any of it. Like I'm locked out of my own mind." He took her hand. "The memories will come back. The doctor said so. But what if they don't? What if I'm stuck like this forever?" "Then we'll figure it out," Adrian said firmly. "You're not alone in this." Elle looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "Why are you doing this? You saved my life. You've gone above and beyond anything a nurse is required to do. You bring your daughter to keep me company. You spend your breaks with me." "Why?" Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he told her the truth. "Because everyone deserves to fight. When you came in, you were dying, and I saw someone worth saving." "I still do." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for seeing me when I can't even see myself." The conversations deepened. Elle asked about his life, really asked. Not polite small talk, but genuine curiosity. Adrian found himself sharing things he never told anyone. About his wife leaving, about the shame he felt when he couldn't afford Maya's medications, about working himself to exhaustion because stopping felt like failing, about being so tired sometimes he forgot what it felt like to just breathe without anxiety crushing his chest. Elle listened, actually listened, didn't offer platitudes or easy solutions, just held space for his pain. When he finished, she said something that nearly broke him. "You're a good man, Adrian, the best kind. The kind who keeps showing up even when it's hard." No one had seen him like that in years, not since his wife left. Adrian had become invisible. The nurse who covered shifts. The single dad who was always tired. The guy people felt sorry for but didn't really know. Elle saw him, really saw him, and it felt like coming up for air after being underwater too long. But he knew it couldn't last. Knew that eventually her memories would return. She'd remember who she was, where she came from, and she'd leave, go back to her real life, whatever that was, and he'd go back to his, the double shifts, the exhaustion, the loneliness. That was reality, Whatever this was between them, was temporary, a moment out of time, nothing more. On day 14, everything changed. Adrian was at the nurse's station, finishing paperwork, when a man in an expensive suit walked in. Late 40s, confident, the kind of confidence that came with money and power. He approached the desk. "I'm looking for a patient." A woman, 50s, admitted 2 weeks ago. No identification. The receptionist hesitated. "Sir, we can't give out patient information." The man pulled out a badge. "Private investigator. I've been hired by the Montgomery family. I believe you have their missing family member here." He slid a photo across the desk. Adrian's blood went cold. It was Elle. But the name under the photo read Elena Montgomery. The receptionist called security, called the hospital administrator. Within minutes, the conference room was full. The investigator laid out everything. Elena Montgomery, 52 years old, CEO of Montgomery Global Technologies. Net worth estimated at $4 billion. She disappeared 3 weeks ago from her home in San Francisco. Family thought she'd been kidnapped. They'd hired investigators, offered rewards, searched everywhere. And here she was, in a public hospital in a different state, suffering from amnesia, completely unaware of who she was. The administrator looked at Adrian. "You've been her primary caregiver?" Adrian nodded, numb. "Did she ever mention anything about her past?" "No, nothing. She doesn't remember." The investigator made calls. Within an hour, Elena's family was notified. Her son, her daughter, business partners, all of them on their way. The hospital erupted into controlled chaos. Security increased, private rooms arranged, the staff suddenly treating Jane Doe, Elle, with a level of deference that made Adrian's stomach turn. He stood outside her room, unable to go in, unable to face her, because now he understood. Elle wasn't just someone, she was a billionaire, a CEO, someone from a world so far removed from his that they might as well be from different planets. And he was a nurse who could barely pay his rent. The gap between them wasn't just large, it was impossible. He watched through the window as the investigator went in, showed her photos, documents, proof of who she was. Elle's face was unreadable, confused, overwhelmed. She looked toward the door, saw Adrian standing there. Their eyes met, and something in her expression broke. She mouthed his name, but he couldn't move, couldn't go to her, because everything had changed. The woman he'd saved, the woman he'd been getting to know, the woman who'd made him feel seen for the first time in years, she didn't exist. She was Elena Montgomery, and Adrian Foster was just the nurse who'd happened to be there when she collapsed. That's all he'd ever be. The investigator came out, closing the door behind him. Her family will be here tomorrow. They're arranging transport back to San Francisco. She'll have the best neurologists, the best care. Adrian nodded. That's good. The investigator looked at him curiously. She asked for you, wants to see you. Adrian shook his head. I'm just her nurse. She needs to focus on her family now, on remembering her real life. He walked away, down the hall, past the nurse's station, out into the parking lot where the cold air hit him like a slap. He sat in his car, hands gripping the wheel. And for the first time in years, Adrian Foster let himself feel the full weight of how small his life was, how limited, how someone like Elena Montgomery would never fit into a world like his. He'd saved her life. That was enough. It had to be, because anything else, any hope he'd been foolish enough to start feeling, was impossible. The investigator's words triggered something. Elena Montgomery, CEO, San Francisco, $4 billion. Elle sat in that hospital bed, photos spread around her, and suddenly the dam broke. Memories flooded back all at once, not gently, not slowly, like a tidal wave. Her company, the years building it from nothing, the board meetings, the acquisitions, her children, grown now with lives of their own, her ex-husband, the divorce 5 years ago, the loneliness that had consumed her ever since. And she remembered the hotel room. Why she'd been there, why she'd checked in under a fake name with cash. She'd been running, not from danger, from herself, from a life that had become nothing but work and emptiness. Her son had called that morning, asked if she could come to his daughter's birthday party. Elena had checked her calendar, booked solid for 3 months. She'd said no, hung up, and suddenly realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd said yes to something that wasn't business. Couldn't remember the last time she'd felt anything real. She'd driven to that hotel, turned off her phone, sat in that expensive suite, staring at the wall, wondering what the point of any of it was, the money, the success, the empire she'd built. All of it felt hollow. The heart attack had come that night, pain in her chest, couldn't breathe. She'd reached for the phone to call for help, then stopped. Part of her wondered if this was the universe giving her an out, a way to stop the endless cycle of work and loneliness without having to make the choice herself. But another part, a smaller, quieter part, had picked up the phone anyway, called the front desk, asked for help, and then everything went black, until she'd woken up in this hospital, with no memory, no identity, no past weighing her down, just Adrian's voice reading to her, just Maya's laughter, just the simple kindness of people who saw her as a person, not a title. Now all of it was back, the weight, the responsibility, the loneliness. Elena sat with those memories, tears streaming down her face, and realized something profound. The 2 weeks without memory had been the happiest she'd felt in years. Not because she'd forgotten her success, but because she'd remembered what it felt like to be human, to connect, to matter to someone for reasons that had nothing to do with what she could do for them. Adrian had seen her, really seen her, and now he was gone. She'd watched him walk away, seen the look on his face when he learned who she really was, like she'd become someone else entirely, someone he couldn't know. The next day, her family arrived, her son Marcus, her daughter Claire, business partners, lawyers, everyone talking at once, arrangements to fly her home, plans for neurological specialists, discussions about the company and what had happened in her absence. They surrounded her with love and concern, but also with expectations, with the weight of being Elena Montgomery again. She let them talk, let them plan, but her eyes kept going to the door, looking for Adrian. He never came. When she asked, a nurse told her he'd switched to a different floor. Wasn't assigned to her case anymore. Elena understood, but it hurt more than she wanted to admit. Marcus held her hand. "Mom, we were so worried. We thought something terrible had happened." Elena squeezed back. "Something did happen, but maybe not the way you think." Claire frowned. "What do you mean?" Elena looked at her daughter, at her son, at all these people who loved her but somehow didn't really know her anymore. "I mean, I forgot who I was. And in forgetting, I remembered what matters." Her business partner interrupted. "The board will want you back as soon as you're medically cleared. We've held things together, but decisions need to be made." Elena nodded slowly, but something in her had shifted. The old Elena would have agreed immediately, would have been on the phone already, catching up, taking control. This Elena hesitated. "I need to do something first," she said. "Can you give me an hour?" "Alone?" Her family exchanged glances but agreed. They left. The room fell quiet. Elena picked up the phone, asked the nurse to find Adrian Foster. "Tell him Elena Montgomery needs to see him. It's important." 20 minutes later, Adrian appeared in her doorway, still in his scrubs, face carefully neutral. She saw it immediately, the walls he'd built, the distance he'd put between them. "Come in, please." He stepped inside but didn't sit. "I'm glad your memory came back, that your family found you." His voice was professional, polite, nothing like the warmth she'd grown used to. "Adrian," she started. He cut her off. "You don't need to thank me. I was just doing my job." She stood up, walked closer, her legs still weak but steady enough. "No, you saved me in more ways than one." He looked confused. "I don't understand." She took a breath. "When I woke up with no memory, I was terrified, lost. But you made me feel safe. You showed me kindness without expecting anything in return. You brought your daughter to make me smile. You read to me, talked to me, treated me like a person, not a patient." She paused. "And watching you with Maya, seeing how you loved her despite everything being hard, It reminded me of something I'd forgotten. What? He asked, his voice softer now. That life isn't about what you build or how much you achieve. It's about who you are to the people around you. It's about showing up, about caring, about fighting for what matters. Adrian looked away. You have your life back now, your real life, a life that has nothing to do with me. She felt the words like a physical blow. You think because I'm Elena Montgomery, because I have money and a company, that we're from different worlds? He met her eyes. Aren't we? I'm a single dad nurse who works double shifts to afford my daughter's inhalers. You're a billionaire CEO. There's no bridge across that gap. Elena reached into her bag, pulled out an envelope. She'd prepared it that morning before her family arrived. Handed it to him. What's this? Open it. He did. Inside was a check, made out to Adrian Foster. The amount made him go pale. This is for Maya's medical expenses, Elena said. For her inhalers, her doctor visits, her future. So you never have to choose between your daughter's health and paying rent again. Adrian stared at the check, then at her, his hands shaking. I can't accept this. Why not? Because I didn't save you for money. His voice cracked. I saved you because it's what I do. Because everyone deserves to fight. Not because I wanted some kind of reward. Elena smiled, sad and warm at the same time. I know, that's exactly why I'm giving it to you. He tried to hand it back. She wouldn't take it. Adrian, you have spent years sacrificing everything for your daughter. Let someone help for once. His pride warred with the practical reality of what that money meant. Maya's medications covered. No more double shifts. No more panic over bills. But accepting it felt like admitting he couldn't do it alone. Like he was taking charity. Elena saw his struggle, stepped closer. This isn't charity. This is gratitude. From someone whose life you saved. Please, let me do this one thing. He looked at the check, at her, back at the check. Finally, he nodded, voice barely a whisper. Thank you. She exhaled relief. There's something else. I want to ask you something. He waited. Can I stay in touch after I leave? After I go back to San Francisco, can we still talk? Adrian's face showed the conflict. Pride versus want. Fear versus hope. Elena saw it, made a different offer before he could answer. Actually, I have a better idea. My company needs a healthcare consultant, someone who understands what patients actually need, what makes a hospital work, what doesn't. Someone with real experience. Would you consider it? Adrian blinked. What? It's a real position. Good salary, full benefits, flexible hours so you can still be there for Maya. And it would be remote mostly. You wouldn't have to move. He stared at her. You're offering me a job? She smiled. I'm offering you an opportunity. Your expertise is valuable, Adrian. You've spent years in the ER. You understand healthcare from the ground level. That perspective is something my company needs. This isn't charity. This is business. But his expression said he didn't believe her. Elena sighed. Okay, fine. It's also selfish. I want a reason to stay connected to you, to check in, and to know how you were doing. Because these 2 weeks, even though I didn't know who I was, were the most real I've felt in years. And I don't want to lose that. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked the question that mattered. Why? Why would someone like you want to stay connected to someone like me? Because you see me, she said simply. Not Elena Montgomery, CEO. Not the billionaire or the business owner or the title. You see me, and that's rarer than you think. He looked at her. Really looked. Saw the loneliness she'd been carrying. The weight that money couldn't fix. The same emptiness he recognized in himself. Slowly he nodded. Okay, I'll think about it. She smiled, relief flooding her face. That's all I'm asking. 3 months later, Adrian stood in his new apartment, modest, 2 bedrooms, but clean and safe in theirs. Maya's room was painted her favorite color, decorated with posters and stuffed animals and everything a 6-year-old could want. Her inhaler prescriptions sat on the kitchen counter, refilled, paid for, no more panic about affording them. Adrian had taken the consulting position. The salary was more than he'd made in 3 years at the hospital, But more than the money, the work mattered. He was helping design better patient care systems, using his experience to make real changes. It felt good, purposeful. The doorbell rang. Adrian opened it to find Elena standing there with Maya, both of them laughing about something. "Miss Elena picked me up from school," Maya announced. "We got ice cream." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Before dinner?" Elena grinned. "I'm a bad influence." He laughed, stepped aside to let them in. Over the past 3 months, Elena had become a constant presence. She'd stepped back from the day-to-day operations of her company, hired a president to handle things, started volunteering at Maya's school, working on work-life balance, trying to remember what it felt like to have a life outside of work. And somehow she and Adrian had built something. Friendship, maybe more. Neither of them rushed it. Dinner became routine. The three of them around Adrian's small table, Maya chattering about school, Elena listening with genuine interest, Adrian watching them both with something warm in his chest. After dinner, Maya asked the question she'd been asking more frequently. "Can Miss Elena stay for movie night?" Adrian looked at Elena. She looked back, hopeful, uncertain. He nodded. "We'd like that." They settled on the couch, Maya between them, picked an animated movie. Halfway through, Maya fell asleep, her head on Elena's lap. Elena stroked her hair gently, whispered to Adrian, "Thank you for saving me." He looked at her, really looked, at this woman who'd crashed into his life when she was dying, who'd changed everything without meaning to. "Thank you for seeing me." Elena smiled, reached into her purse, pulled out a photo. "Can I show you something?" She handed it to him. It was from Maya's school play 2 weeks ago. The three of them together, Maya in her costume, Adrian and Elena on either side, looking like a family. "Is it okay if I keep this?" Elena asked, her voice small, vulnerable. Adrian saw the tears in her eyes, understood suddenly. She was as lonely as he'd been, maybe more. "You're always welcome here," he said. "You know that, right?" She took his hand. "I was thinking maybe more than visits." His heart stopped. "What do you mean?" She took a breath. "I know this is complicated. I know we come from different worlds. But these 3 months being part of your life, part of Maya's life, it's been the happiest I've been in years. And I think maybe if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, we could try." Really try. Adrian stared at her, at this brilliant, successful, kind woman who was asking him for a chance. His pride whispered that he wasn't enough, that she deserved someone from her world. But his heart remembered how she looked at him, how she saw him, how she made him feel like he mattered. Have you ever met someone who completely changed your life? Someone who saw you when you felt invisible? Share your story in the comments below. And if you believe real connection matters more than anything else, subscribe to True Soul Narratives for more stories that remind us what it means to be human. 6 months later, everything had changed. Elena had moved to a smaller house, nothing like her San Francisco mansion. Just a comfortable place 10 minutes from Adrian's apartment. They were dating, taking it slow, figuring out how two very different lives could fit together. Maya had a mother figure for the first time in her memory, someone who showed up to school plays and helped with homework and genuinely cared. Adrian had a partner who respected his work, who understood the value of what he did, who never made him feel small. And Elena had something she'd been missing for years: family, real connection, a life that mattered because of who she shared it with, not what she achieved. They had dinner together most nights, sometimes at Adrian's place, sometimes at Elena's. Maya would set the table, help cook, tell stories about her day. And they'd all listen, really listen, like every word mattered, because it did. One evening, as they cleaned up after dinner, Maya asked a question. "Are you and Miss Elena going to get married?" Adrian nearly dropped the plate he was holding. "Maya, it's okay," Elena said, laughing. "It's a fair question." She looked at Adrian. "Someday, maybe, if your dad wants to." Adrian looked at Elena, at this woman who'd come into his life as a dying stranger and become everything. "Yeah, someday, maybe." That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrian and Elena sat on his small balcony, looking at the stars. "I never thought my life would look like this," Elena said. "Me neither." She took his hand. You know what's funny? What? When I collapsed in that hotel, part of me had given up. I'd built everything I thought I wanted and felt emptier than ever. But then I woke up, and you were there, reading to me, making me feel like I mattered. And suddenly I remembered why living is worth it. Adrian squeezed her hand. You saved me too. You know that? She looked at him, surprised. How? By showing me that being broke doesn't mean being broken. That love isn't about what you can give financially. It's about showing up, about being present, about caring. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other in the most unexpected way. A nurse who refused to give up. A CEO who'd forgotten what mattered. Both of them broken in different ways. Both of them healing together. Sometimes saving someone's life means they save yours too. Real wealth isn't money or success or achievement. It's connection. It's being seen. It's finding someone who values you for who you are, not what you have. Adrian Foster had saved Elena Montgomery's life that night in the ER, but she'd saved his right back by reminding him that he was more than his struggles, more than his exhaustion, more than his circumstances. He was enough, just as he was, and that was everything.